Hello, everyone. How are you doing? It's the Dr. Will Show, and welcome. I'm your host, Dr. Will, and we are back with another episode. And we're talking about getting connected with Pernille Ripp. Pernille, how are you doing?
I am doing great. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. We're excited to get you here. I'm still always shocked when folks say, "Yeah, I'll be a guest." You know, so for people who are watching and for some reason, maybe they've been on the moon and they don't know who you are. Will you introduce yourself?
I think a lot of people don't know who I am, and that's a beautiful thing with the whole internet. There are so many people out there, there's so many people to get to know. But I'm a seventh grade teacher in Oregon, Wisconsin, and I am a mother. I have four young children, four under the age of 6. I am also an author. I've written 2 books and in the process of the second edition coming out. And I have a really good life. I'm a genuinely kind of upbeat person. And I would say that I'm a connected educator as well in more ways than one. I've been blogging since 2010 on my blog, blogging through the fourth dimension because I used to be a fourth grade teacher. And blogging has definitely brought a lot of opportunities into my life and made my life better, such as being on this podcast.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. So, how do you define the term connected educator, and does it go beyond developing a PLN on Twitter?
I think it does, and I know that some people disagree with that definition. But I think for me, being a connected educator means not just being connected via whatever social media channel I want to use, but also being connected in my own community. And I think that's something that we often forget. And I know that when I first got on Twitter in 2010, I got really obsessed with Twitter. I think I spent an entire summer sitting in front of my Twitter feed waiting for it to refresh. And I was so enamored with all of the global connections that I was making and all the amazing ideas that were being shared that I very quietly shut my own door in my school and started not dismissing ideas, but not inviting the conversations in as much as I was before. And it actually took me several years to realize that all of the passion and power I was putting out in the world, I wasn't actually giving to my face-to-face colleagues. So now I feel like being a connected educator means that you're connected in some way, in a way that works for you, but it means that you're reaching out and you're learning from others. Of course, being connected via social media opens up the entire world to you, but I wouldn't say that it's wrong to be connected if you're just connected locally. I don't think there is a wrong way to be a connected educator as long as you're trying to better the world and share ideas and be inspired from others.
Excellent, excellent. I'm glad you brought that up, and we're definitely going to get to it because one of my biggest disappointments is teachers who don't connect and share and collaborate in their schools, in their districts, and at conferences. It really is a big letdown when you go to a conference and people just hang out with the folks from their district that they came in with, or the conference did not organize a space for us to really sort of get together and reflect and share ideas. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So that when you bring up that face to face, that is really important, and I think something that all of us who are on Twitter need to understand, that we need to sort of get back to that and start to develop and cultivate those relationships. So, how did you become a connected educator?
It was a very organic process. I stumbled across Lisa Nelson's blog, and she had written a blog post, and I had never looked at education blogs much. I felt like I was plenty inspired in my district's professional development, but a few years in, I knew that I needed to change the way I taught to make it about students again, and so I knew there had to be others out there with better ideas than what I had. And so the first blog that I followed was Lisa Nelson's out of New York, and she had a blog roll, and on that blog roll, it was all these other people that she followed, and so I picked one and then followed the next one, and then pretty quickly my husband said, well, do you know that there's a lot of educators on Twitter? Now, why he knew that, I'm not sure, because he's not an educator, but he always seems to be 3 steps ahead of me. I'd been on Twitter for a year by then, but had never used it. And so I very cautiously put my toes in the water and got hooked pretty quickly. EdChat was the first hashtag that I got connected to, and I still remember the first few people that I started communicating with, like Edna Saxon in Australia and Nick Provenzano out of Michigan, and being so amazed that these people were responding to me because who was I? I was some random fourth grade teacher at the time in Wisconsin who really didn't have much to share with the world, but just was so eager to connect. And so since then, it's been a very organic process of just trying to establish meaningful relationships with people and really trying to lift other people up and also trying to share some of my ideas because I know that some of the stuff that I've learned from others, it hasn't been the big, huge, mind-changing ideas. It's been those little things that they do in their classroom that I've completely borrowed or stolen and adapted and made my own. And so I started blogging at the same time, and it kind of became this big debutante party of just putting it all out there for myself, for my own learning, and not assuming that anybody else would connect with me. And so very carefully starting to cultivate real friendships through my connections and also just having a base of inspiration at my fingertips every single day.
Cool. So, and thinking about Twitter, and all of us who are on Twitter, we speak about it, we blogged about it, we presented about it, uh, and we tend to get, I don't know if isolated is the term, or preaching to the choir, but we're so into it that we forget that on that sort of on the ground contact. But for
I
those,
Yeah.
mhm.
No, I agree. And like I said, I fell in love with Twitter and I got so sucked into it that I really shut out much of the other world around me. And I also became that hatchet wielding warrior of being a connected educator and pretty much telling everybody that if they weren't connected, then they were disconnected. And I think that's very, very harmful for people because I think we do get stuck in our circles. We get good at patting each other on the shoulder and saying, look at us, we're changing the world because we're having these global conversations and sharing these ideas, and forgetting about the people that also are changing the world but are not having these conversations. So I think for me, a mission has really been to make sure that I don't end up on some high horse somewhere thinking that I'm better than other people just because I happen to be on Twitter or happen to be connected.
Mhm. So why do you think that educators uh, don't connect face to face, whether it be in their schools, their districts, or conferences? What do you think is holding them back, or obstacles with that?
I think there's a couple different factors. I can tell you from my personal experience, fear is a huge one. We don't ever want to see as if we think we're better than someone else. And so having the audacity to share any of our ideas, whether online or locally, um, is really hard. And it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of trust. I think time. I know when people talk to me a lot about being on Twitter or why they're not on Twitter or why they're not connected, is they just don't have time for it. I have found that being connected has saved me a lot of time because I feel like I know where I can go for the inspiration. If I need anything for my classroom, I can access it a lot quicker than a Google search. And then I think just also the usefulness. I think people still kind of look at it as one more thing and oh, that sounds nice, but is it really necessary? And so when I tell people that Twitter and being connected truly has changed my life, I think they think I'm making that up. But I look back on the last 5 years, the friendships that I've made, the connections I've made, and the opportunities that not just I've been given, but my students have been given. That's why I continue to be connected. And I always say in presentations, I'm connected so that my students can be connected because talk about bringing the world in. I can't stand in the way of that between my students and the rest of the world. And so I use my connections to make their education better, and vice versa. I use my connections to get their voices out to the world. But I think it's hard. It's one more thing, and educators already feel like they have enough on their plate and they're already doing enough things. And honestly, too, a lot of us feel like we're doing a good job. Do we really need more ideas?
Mm, mm. So this is something. and you are the right person to talk to about, because this is something that I myself had to sort of grapple with, and that is when you're on Twitter, connecting and actually forming relationships with people, because there's ebbs and flow with that. Some people, you may be just, we're best buds, we're doing this thing for 6 months, and then all of a sudden that relationship starts to wane, and then something else or another relationship with someone else will begin, and those things. And in the beginning, I personally was like, what's going on here? Like, I thought we were homies. And then I just sort of step back and say, let's go with this. This is about the journey and the learning experience, and I stopped taking that personally. Um, Knowing that that happens, and I saw you chuckle there. What are your thoughts on navigating relationships on Twitter?
I think it's hard. And I think because people don't see your real life. I mean, they see you hopefully and you as a real person. But I think about, like, right now in the background, I have 3 kids screaming for their dad because they want him to do one more thing. And so I think often when people disappear in those relationships, because I'm with you, I take it personal too. Like, what did I say? What did I do? How did I upset them? I think sometimes we just don't know what kind of life trains are crashing in people's lives. I've also had people that were very committed to Twitter, and then all of a sudden they fell off the face of the planet, and later on I'll find out that they needed to take a step back. And so I think it's hard, and I think you do have to kind of remove yourself from the whole personal relationship and thinking that you did something wrong, but then also trying to seek people out, because if you are close, trying to figure out an explanation, and I've found that with my friends that did step off of Twitter, we've been able to maintain our connections in another way. But everybody's busy, and so I don't think that downgrades the relationship that you may have had, or the friendship or the connection that you may have had. But I think about my personal life here in Wisconsin, and my best friend, I see her maybe once every 2 months, and so that actually mirrors, sometimes my Twitter relationships mirrors my actual life, and that I only have those deep meaningful moments with people every 1 or 2 months.
Mm. So you wrote this blog post several months ago, and when I read it, I was like, "Wow, she actually went there." And when you talk about the drawbacks of becoming a connected educator and being on Twitter and all those things, but before we get there, though, let's talk about the benefits. So,
Mhm.
what are the benefits to actually being a connected educator and actually maybe using Twitter as that platform to do so?
Well, I think it's amazing, all these people that are willing to respond to you and to put their knowledge at your fingertips. I think it's amazing how you can post a question and you get responses. I think it's amazing how you can develop genuine friendships with people that you admire. The ways that we can utilize it in our classroom as far as gaining expert knowledge or creating opportunities for our students. I mean, I would never go back to being unconnected. That's for sure. I think we really can shape it into what we want, but just the learning and the knowledge and all of these people that are on the same journeys. I think also the isolation piece, when I changed the way I taught, I thought I was crazy. I thought that trying to get rid of grades and homework and punishment and rewards and making it about the students again, that I was the only, clown in the circus trying to do that. And it turned out I wasn't. And I found my tribe. And I think that that's what's so important, that even if we're in schools or in situations where we feel completely alone and like our voice doesn't matter, I can turn to Twitter and all of a sudden I can see that I'm one more person kind of fighting the fight for those kids. And so I think there's a lot of positive to being connected. But like you said, I wrote that blog post and it was actually because it was Connected Educator Month, and I was very tired sitting on a plane, and I was like, you know what? Sometimes being connected sucks. It really sucks, because people get an impression of you that the minute you veer away from that impression, whether it's true or not, you've disappointed them, and they take that very personal. You put everything out there and you hope that people take it in the right spirit, but at the same time, there's definitely been blog posts and tweets where I've gotten a lot of criticism, and it's really hard to not, of course you're going to take it personal, but not to bring it into your family. It's not just me that's connected, it's my entire family, and I put it all out there. I think also sometimes you end up holding yourself to these incredibly high expectations because somebody might have liked your blog post, or somebody, you may have gotten a really cool connection, and then you get so worried about what you're going to put out there and whether it's going to be good enough that it ends up being just a mess because you can't live up to your own expectations. And so I've declared myself an extroverted introvert. I really like people, but socially I get really overwhelmed, which is why I don't go to a lot of conferences a lot of the time. But so that kind of plays into it too, that I'm choosing to put it all out there. And I've put out, incredibly personal things on my blog. And so you kind of hold your breath at times and hope that people read it in the right spirit. There's also been tears over being connected, or like you said, you think you have a nice connection going with someone, it's very symbiotic, and then all of a sudden they disappear, and you do really sit there and wonder, well, what did I do?
Hmm. For me, what really struck a chord in reading that piece for me was, and I found myself getting caught up in this myself, of uh, you start to get a little jelly. You see people blowing up around you, getting these deals, these speaking engagements, these spotlights, and you're saying to yourself like, "What? Where's mine?" You know what I'm saying? Why am I not there? Or I'm just as good as that person. Or you start to go, well, maybe I don't have the goods,
Mm-hmm.
because you look at someone else and you go, why do I not, have that, or that sort of thing. And it really took me getting to a spiritual place for me to say, I know who I am and what I bring to the table, my strengths and all that stuff, and what it's meant for me will come to me, and that I should not compare, myself, my voice to anyone else, or whatever I receive or don't receive, and and I think that's something that all of us who are connected should, uh, I guess, get to that place to where we're comfortable where we are and not comparing ourselves to other people because of everything that we see.
But it's hard not to because we're human. And I feel like, and I just had this conversation with someone too, because when you get on Twitter, it's almost like you're part of a high school class, like a year. And so you kind of see those people that got connected at the same time as you. And all of a sudden, like my class of 2010 has incredible people in it. And they're getting crazy things, and they're getting offers to travel worldwide, and ending up at all these amazing places. And in my head, I'm going, wow, that's amazing. And then that little part of me is going, well, why am I not going there or doing that or getting that opportunity? And then I look at my life and I'm like, well, would I really want that opportunity? And of course, part of you is like, well, yes, I would. But then the real part of me is like, well, no, I wouldn't. And I find myself when I start to get too jealous about, like, I have there's two women that pop into my head that I just admire more than anything, and the stuff they do is just so creative and so out there, and they're constantly creating and constantly making things and blowing everybody's minds. And every time I talked to them in the beginning, I felt so inferior because I wasn't creating, and I wasn't doing all of these amazing things, and I wasn't changing people's minds and changing the world and dedicating myself to this whole creation aspect, until one of them finally said, yeah, you teach full time, and you have 4 kids. That's also your job. And I realized, like, as much as I would like to sit and crank out a book or crank out podcasts or crank out all these things to get more opportunities, I also choose to be a teacher, and that's the best choice that I've made as far as where I need to be. But it's hard. I mean, especially with all the crazy awards that go around and all those things, like that's when it gets really ugly on Twitter, it seems. That whole vote for me thing, ugh, just makes me cringe.
I was just saying, like I said, I had to get there, and again, I've been blessed to find myself associated with the right group. And when I think about uh, some of the pictures that I've seen coming through from different conferences or that or whatever, and I was saying the other day that this one particular group, when I saw those pictures, that looked like a party. But the group, that I'm associated with, when I saw their pictures from their most recent conference, I said, "Oh, that looks like my family," because what we have and share together and what we do, for me, far outweigh anything that this other group sort of, does on that scale and pomp and circumstance.
Right.
So that's when, like you said, like what is more important to me? And for me, it has always been about connecting and growing and collaborating and learning together and literally championing each other and pushing each other. So when I know people and they're trying to do something, I'm like, you got this. Don't you can do anything, and that's what I love. So hopefully people watching this, they're really digging this, and we're not sort of boring them with all of this. But I guess we kind of walked into this. But what are your thoughts on how being connected actually leads people to these other opportunities?
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because I think that there are so many people out there sharing their genius with the world, and the world is a better place because of the opportunities they've gotten through being connected. But at the same time, my teacher heart cries a little bit whenever another amazing teacher leaves the classroom. To go and I know have a bigger impact on others and whatnot. And then I also sometimes you see people change because of the opportunities that they've been given. So I always hope that people get the type of opportunities that can push them to be better at what they are, and that they don't lose themselves on that journey. Because I think it's really hard. I think it's really easy to all of a sudden start taking yourself really, really seriously. Like when I went to ISTE this summer, which was my first time at ISTE, it was so overwhelming that I went and cried in my hotel room. Now, I told people that because that's how I roll, but it was just, I've never gotten so many compliments in the span of 12 hours. And I thought to myself as I was digesting this with my husband and he was at home with the kids, and I was trying to kind of give him a slice of this very surreal experience that I was having at ISTE. And he said, well, what are you taking away from it? And I said, well, I guess I'm I'm humbled, I'm grateful, I'm thankful. But I said also, if people are looking to me for any kind of inspiration, then it's my job to lift others up. And so I took it as an opportunity to go, okay, if people are really listening to my voice, how can I spread that to build others up? So just like you were saying, and in fact, yesterday I was just tweeting out how excited I was that Jessica Lifshitz, who's one of the most amazing bloggers right now that I'm following, a 5th grade teacher from Chicago, she had just added a subscribe to my blog via email post or thing on her blog, and I was so excited because now I can get her inspiration in my inbox. And so I tweeted that out, and someone else commented how nice it is to see that collegial, sharing on Twitter. And I thought, this shouldn't be a once in a while. This should be an all the time. So I don't know if I just talked away from your question, but I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing the opportunities that people can get. But I think just don't lose yourself and lose the bigger purpose, because I always think, like, if I'm at a conference, I'm there representing my students. That is my job. My job is to change education so that my own children and the kids that I get to teach can have a better shot at staying in school and being engaged. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to think that it's all about me and me sharing my genius. My genius comes from my students.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I know when I saw you at not Twitter, at ISTE, and this is my second ISTE, because last year was my first, I was like, wow, that's Pernille Ripp. Though this year I admit being more subdued than last year, because last year man, you would have thought I had gone somewhere out of the country to some place that I have never been before in my life. I was like, oh my gosh, hey, it's you. Oh, let's take a selfie.
That's what I was doing. Oh my God, it's you. Like, I was getting teary-eyed. I probably freaked out so many people.
Yeah, it was just phenomenal. But this year for me, it was definitely about there's a core group of people that this, let's hang out. Let's really sort of maximize this face-to-face time we have, because last year was just crazy, But yeah, I was just sitting there. I was like, "That's Pernille Ripp."
I felt like a unicorn emerging from the mist. But it's my own fault. I haven't gone to conferences, and so life just has not gotten in the way because I love my life. But it was an amazing experience. I felt very lucky to get to go and meet so many people. And like you said, I was trying to find those small moments with people and just sit and connect and really listen to what other people had to share. And I left that conference with like 5 new friends. And that's really hard when you're introverted. But I was like, I'm going to make friends, not just acquaintances. I'm going to find new people that I don't know who are amazing. And they have already enriched my life in so many ways. And it's only been a month.
Awesome, awesome. Now, before we go, I want to get your recommendations because, every day there are new educators joining Twitter. And I know from personal experience with my dissertation, working with teachers and getting them into Twitter, I understand the journey and what is to be expected. Because particularly there were people in my study who were like, they were like, I'm tweeting and no one's responding, and I'm like,
keep tweeting.
Yeah, like, yeah, this thing it's not going to happen overnight. And so when someone comes to you, or you're presenting, you're at your school, in any situation where you are talking to people about why they should get on Twitter, what are your recommendations for people beginning that journey of becoming a connected educator?
To not give up and to do it in an organic way. And I always tell them kind of the brutal side, like you said. Like, I sat in front of my computer and nobody responded to me. I mean, I was like desperate, like that kid trying to be popular. Like, am I going to wear my hair this way so they'll look at me and talk to me? But I think the best part is just been reaching out to people one-on-one and really trying to establish a relationship with them. If you see they're blogging, go on their blog as well, leave a comment, start a conversation. I'm very big on responding to people that tweet to me because that's someone taking their time out of their day to do that. And so really just picking maybe a select few people, not in a stalker way, but just in an admiration way, and then figuring out who to follow based on what you're interested in. And always ask for recommendations too. I mean, I see that all the time. People will say they're looking for something in particular or a person to connect with, and so I try to put people together. But don't give up because it can be overwhelming and it can move really quickly. And there's no right way to do Twitter. Those people that say there is not. You make it work for you. You can lurk as long as you want, but do kind of dip your toes in and start making those connections. You can always connect with me. I like people. I'll tweet to you. I'll send you in the right direction.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I dig it, and I spend a little too much time on Twitter. In the beginning, I was on Twitter, like 6 hours a day.
Right. Yeah, my 1.5-year-old, like, she didn't get fed lunch.
And my wife.
One kid, so it was okay.
And my wife was like, "What are you doing? Why are you on Twitter all the time?" And I said, "Look, you need to try it." And at first, at the same, yes, the wife is a rock star, and she's Batman, and I'm Robin.
Aww.
That's how we do it. But she's on there now, and she loves it, and all that stuff. So again, thank you, Pernille. It was great hanging out with you and having this conversation. And sometime in the future, I hope you come back on the show and share other ideas and your experiences with the audience.
I would love to. Thank you for having me, Will.
You're welcome. Thank you. And folks, thank you for watching another episode of the Dr. Will Show. Tomorrow, I have another show for you, and on Saturday. I've been gone for about 3 weeks. Now
Wow.
I'm putting in the work.
Dr. Will, who's going to be on your show tomorrow?
Tomorrow is going to be Dr. Brady, and we're going to be talking about leadership.
I like it.
Yeah, so it's all good. I enjoy this. I don't have the sponsors. Not that I'm looking for them, but Keurig. Anytime you want to hook me up, that's great. But I do it for the love. I do it for the love.
Somebody, but I love it because you and I were talking about how you love like podcasting, and I'm like, you couldn't pay me to do that. Nobody wants to hear me talk, so I'm just gonna write. So
Awesome.
Thing.
Awesome. Thank you. And folks, as always, this is going to be on my blog, and you'll be able to check it out and see and check out ways you can actually get connected with Pernille. So again, folks, thank you again for watching another episode of the Dr. Will Show, and I'll see you tomorrow.